Hi everyone, I'm Rinsey and this is Rinsey Reads. Today I'm going to be talking about the rest of The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. I will link up in the iCards to the first part of this video where I talked about the first half of this book. I'll mostly be focusing on the last half of this book and my general experience with reading this. But first I want to say just thanks to everyone who's read this along with me this month. I know I wasn't like super active online with the hashtag or anything like that just because of the way my August was. It was crazy. But yeah, it was fun to see other people reading this book along with me and to see their reactions to different parts of the book. And if it wasn't clear, there's going to be spoilers for this book in this video. So if you haven't read this yet, I highly recommend not watching this because I will be talking about very specific details that will ruin parts of this book for you, I think. I think it's better to know as little as possible going into this book. So yeah, I think I liked the second half of this book significantly better than the first half of this book, and I think it's because of like the major plot details that happened. I knew going into this book that the father was going to get murdered, but I didn't know like by whom or anything like that. I realized that I thought that Dmitri was going to kill his father, but it turns out like that plot detail had gotten mixed in my head, and it was just like Dmitri was going to be accused of killing his father. So I think part of the problem that I had with this book is that I was waiting for this death to occur for so long, or this murder to occur for so long, and then it finally happens, but it's already like past the halfway point in the book. So I think like for that reason, I didn't end up enjoying the first half of the book as much because I assumed that by the halfway point in the book, we would have already seen the murder. But after that occurs, and then everything having to deal with Dmitri getting arrested and the trial, and even Ivan like dealing with his own guilt of the situation, all of that I found super interesting, super into it. That's what I wanted this book to be the majority of. Like, the reason why I like Crime and Punishment so much, I think, is because the crime happens pretty early on in the story, and then the rest of the book is about this character going through the guilt of the actions that he has taken. And I kind of assumed that The Brothers Karamazov was going to be along those lines. I didn't assume that the murder would happen in the first part of the book. Like, I understood that they were setting up a lot of the relationship and background and all these different things, but I felt like it took too long to get to the murder, and then I was really into it once the murder actually occurred and they were dealing with things like guilt and consequences and seeing how your actions can have effects on other characters. There were still parts of the second half of the book that I wasn't really into, like Alyosha dealing with all of the schoolboys. Again, I recognize that it's meant to be a discussion on religion and philosophy and good and evil and actions and whatnot, but one, it feels kind of heavy-handed, and two, I feel like there was plenty of that happening in the main storyline that all of that other stuff wasn't necessary. Feel free to disagree with me, you know, you're welcome to do so, but I feel like the best parts of this book were whenever the brothers were interacting with each other or interacting with their father, or even just those characters on their own, sort of recognizing or wrestling with their actions and their thoughts and their motivations and whatnot. Like, sometimes when I'm reading these books, I really question the point of all of the secondary storylines just because I feel like the main storyline in this book is so compelling. Seeing how these brothers fall into these different roles, seeing how they relate to one another, seeing how Alyosha is able to be this light for someone like Ivan who is really disheartened by a lot of things that are happening in the world. All of that I found so fascinating, and I found just all of the other stuff just as extra fluff that was just taking time away from those characters that I was really enjoying. And I feel like that's always my personal just struggle anytime I'm reading these really long epic stories, is that there's part of these epic stories where there are just secondary storylines, which again, I know that there's a reason for including them, like they want you to think about and discuss certain ideas, but I feel like enough of that is done with the main storyline that I don't know, I question whether or not it's necessary. Maybe I'm just overly spoiled by my really well-written, tightly written 300-page books. I'm often like more impressed by that than I am by sprawling 700-800-page novels that seem to have fat that could be cut from it, in my opinion. Obviously, again, this is all my opinion. I'm not like passing judgment on this book as like being something horrible. If you really love those parts and you really love those stories, then yeah, there was a purpose for that for you. But just for me personally, I felt myself waning in interest anytime those chapters came along and just wanting to go back to the brothers and their relationship and the main storyline of this family dynamic and this murder, and just seeing like what was going to happen to these characters. I mean, even just seeing things like how Katerina ends up standing up for Ivan, or trying to save Ivan from going to jail himself by damning Dmitri in the trial, I think was really interesting. And then seeing eventually how they end up reconciling, even stuff like that I found to be really, really interesting. But again, I just wanted it to be about the brothers Karamazov and like sort of the immediate circle around them, and not so much about these schoolboys and townspeople and whatnot, unless they were actually related to what was happening with this family. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't hate this book. I didn't love this book either, though. I felt like parts of it just felt like work, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, I don't mind when books make me work, but I just wondered whether the work was worth the payoff, which is where I'm not so sure. So yeah, that's everything that I have on the Brothers Karamazov. Again, thanks so much to everyone who read along with me. I'm sure there are some people out there who are not going to be super happy with my opinions on this, but that's fine. It happens. So yeah, let me know down in the comments below what you ended up thinking of it, especially if you were reading along in August. I know a lot of people weren't able to finish it in the month of August. I didn't even finish it within the month of August. I needed a couple of extra days, so don't feel bad if you haven't finished yet. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and thanks for watching.